It has always impressed me how in the wintertime one snowstorm can sort of change everything. Suddenly, most of the northern plains has plenty of water in the soil, or at least sitting on top of the soil. It has not soaked in yet, but it's there. And of course, some of that's going to run off. But this is why you should never worry about a drought in the northern plains in the wintertime. Once the snow is melted, the frost is out of the ground, if the soils are dusty, then you can start worrying. The present outlook is for lingering cold and potentially more stormy weather. Of course, that always depends on storm tracks, and that is tricky. For the time being, we have a very high amplitude weather pattern. This weekend, the stormy weather is mostly along the eastern seaboard, where yet another nor'easter-type storm is taking shape. Ridge of high pressure to the west of the northern plains will bring in milder weather for the start of the week, maybe some 40s by the time that ridge is right over the area. However, the next weather system may bring in a chance of some precipitation to the area sometime late in the weekend, and so we'll have to keep our eyes open for that. Maybe like a St. Patty's Day weekend or shortly after that, storm system somewhere into the northern plains. Cannot say exactly where, but you see the general idea is that next wave lifts out and brings some kind of a system into the region. After that, I think the ridge of high pressure will try to kind of build back a little bit. So overall, the outlook is not quite as cold as it's been, but generally average to below average temperature pattern for the time being. The cold weather this week is mostly going to be down here along the eastern seaboard and across the northeast. Fairly nice span of warm weather coming up through the southern plains into the Rockies, but before that really takes shape, we'll see that beaten back down by this potential weather system about St. Patty's Day, which will likely bring colder weather back. Could be another rain to snow system. Again, I can't tell you the placement. Once we get into next week, the weather looks generally cool, which by this time of year means not all below freezing, probably a lot of above freezing days, but some maybe below freezing days, and definitely the nights generally still on the lower side of freezing. So that's the way that looks. What about beyond? Can we look ahead a week or two? This is just a gander looking at what the models are hinting at, the overall teleconnections around the globe. My suspicion for the last week of March, the first week of April, is we'll continue to have a below average weather pattern across northern plains and southern Canada. This does not mean by late March and early April, this does not mean below 32. It just means a lot of 30s and 40s and maybe some days colder than that, maybe even some 20s if we get a cold spell. As far as moisture goes, I don't dare try to predict where the storms will be 3-4 weeks out from now, but the overall prognosis is it's looking probably fairly wet. So after the storm, we're lingering with the cold weather, and there is more chances for moisture.